Hi everyone, this is Cora. Happy Monday, and this is my weekly talk, a Monday talk that I would like to come up and speak about things that is a little bit off the mat, but also perhaps still related to yoga. And today is October 2nd, and it's the beginning of fourth quarter. Right, and this is usually the time that we also start to think about what we want to do to finish the year strong. So this is time is giving me a sense of planning. Are you a planner or are you not a planner? I think when we think about yoga, we talk about discipline. So yoga is a discipline, life is a discipline, and we all need to have some sort of discipline. But at the same time, there's also the other side, which is, go with the flow. We should be just listening to what is. So last week talk was about doing and being, right? So the doing part of things is usually feels more disciplinary, right? And then also the being, which is more on the going with the flow. So today I want to dig deeper into this, which in easy way to say it is plans or no plans, right? Do you like to stick with a plan, or do we go with the flow? And I think you already know the answers is we need both, right? Life is really about temperance or balance. It's not one way or the other. Discipline is good, but if discipline become rigid, then it can become a problem. Going with the flow is great, right? We all want to be able to just more listen in and being able to be spontaneous and also being able to pivot without being too rigid. But if we just go with the flow, then it can become chaotic, right? So I just taught a class, and this is a class that is called alignment Vinyasa, right? And if you're yogi, you're like, okay, what is that, right? What is alignment Vinyasa? Because when we think about like hatha or alignment, you're thinking about more rigid, more structure, the discipline of it, right? And the Vinyasa seems more flowy, more dynamic, more freedom. The reason why I have this class is because I find myself always struggling in between these two, which means sticking with the plan or being the discipline, but at the same time also be able to be in the flow without being too rigid. And I think that is the sweet spot, and it's very hard. It's very hard. It requires a lot of listening in and reflection in order to find that balance, and we have to consistently check. But here is something that I reflect on when I think about it. And here is my take on this. There's a difference between having a plan and then not follow the plan or pivot from the plan than having no plans at all. One example would be me sequencing classes. I always have a plan. I walked in and have an idea of what I want to teach. Like there are a lot of us that even have the whole sequence right out, right? You know, the first pose is this, second pose, third pose, fourth pose. Okay, these are all the pose. How often do we actually follow the whole structure? I can tell you probably never. Never. I never follow exactly the same sequence. And it's good because it really depends on who is in the room. If I find students I can give a little bit more, I would change, right? So being able to have that spontaneity, right, or spontaneousness, right, to pivot from the plan. But it's very different from walking in without knowing what to teach, which actually some teachers can do, but I personally can't. It's like, so what are we doing today? I don't know. We'll see. Like sorry, I'm not there yet, and nor I actually think that that's my approach to things. So I always think that planning is great, right? So have a plan is good. And I think if we think about it, then it's the same thing for rules, right? So if I think about yoga, it's important to have some sort of rules, right, in our poses. So that's why there's alignment. In Warrior 2, bend your front knee 90 degrees, the back is on the floor, like these are alignment. And so that when we understand these rules, we can have these measurements, right? So is my front leg at 90 degrees? Is my back leg straight? So you can see and measure. And from that, we can pivot, right? We can break some rules. So rules are meant to be broken at the end. So, and I also, so at the end, if you think about the fluidity in the Vinyasa class, you see a lot of shapes that are not quote unquote classical form, and it's okay, right? Wild thing, you can't talk about alignment in wild thing, not so much, right? Or some of the funky poses. I think all yoga is good yoga. I think both rigidity or discipline and breaking away and make other shapes are good. It's just there's a time and place for both, so we can make a difference. We can see the change, right? Well, sorry, see the difference. We can see the difference, and this is how I find myself to see both on the mat, in life, is to how to follow some rules so we have something to measure, to see, because without measurements, without being able to have the clarity to have something to measure from, then it's chaotic, right? So we do need the rules and we do need the plans, and then we break them. We don't follow them, we pivot. We are able to have a plan and then deviate from the plan. We are having the rules for ourselves, whatever rules that are, right? And then being able to be flexible. I used to be a very annoying dieter, I would say, meaning that I tried all kinds of diets, and if I look back now, like, it's just, you don't want to be around me. I'm complete a pain in the ass, right? Meaning that I would just follow things very rigidly. I measure the grams, and I don't eat this, don't eat that, don't eat this, don't eat that. And that was a tremendous amount of discipline. And that has changed, right? I start to think about like being able to enjoy, or being able to be more flexible and be more open into things. And I find restraints are important, but restrictions are restrictions is something else. So we all need restraints in our life, but it's through that restraints, without too obsessive restrictions, then we can find our freedom. One of my mantra is discipline is my freedom, meaning that without rules, we actually feel chaotic and we don't feel free. Having discipline is an opportunity to seek freedom, meaning that to find freedom, I think, or to be able to break free, we first do need some rules. And then we find a balance between the two. So here are my few lines for you. One is have a plan so you can be spontaneous. So have a plan so you can be, go with the flow. And also, rules are meant to be broken, meaning that if you want to, like me, being very rigid, noticing that rules are meant to be broken, meaning that at some point when you follow the rules, when you're starting to got the discipline, then you can break the rules. And I found that thought really freeing. And the last one, I guess, is really what we want in life is to find a balance between stability and freedom, right? So you want to have some sort of structure and framework in life to keep you in check so that you can go with the flow. So this is why I have this alignment vinyasa, or or thinking about both being stable and free, both in poses in life. So today I want you to think about that, or even in your life, thinking about where in your life is lacking some discipline, right? Need a little bit more structure. Have a plan. Again, is the fourth quarter. I think having a plan is great, right? So do plan. But then also to reflect on which part is becoming a little bit too rigid, that you can actually set yourself free, and being more open and willing to pivot or change. So let's say you have something that you planned in the beginning of the year, and then you realize you haven't done it, and then you're like, God, okay, maybe it's okay to change the plan and or even drop it, right? I have a couple things that I look at into the first 3 quarters that I said I gotta do, and I realized I probably want to drop it. So instead of thinking, oh my God, for fourth quarter I still have my huge list of to-do things that I said I gotta do and I haven't. So instead of getting overwhelmed, maybe it's time to think about that, what you want to maintain and which part of it you want to set yourself free, and maybe consider letting go or pivot, right? Change the directions and have that more fluidity and go with the flow mindset of it. I hope this talk helps for you to think about your week, your day, or even your next quarter. Find your balance between your stability and freedom. I'll see you next week.